All right, Jesse on Fire, welcome back to the channel. So UFC 270 came off. I was there, incredible show, and very notable outcome. Notable outcome being that Francis retains the heavyweight championship, and Dana was not there to put the belt on his waist. Now, we're going to talk about why. We're going to talk about exactly what happened last night, and not just in the, we're going to rehash old stuff, because I've talked about this a bunch on the channel. I'm going to talk to you guys about all the stuff relating to this. A bunch of stuff I couldn't talk about before. Cats are out of the bag for the most part here, so we're going to talk about that. And I'm going to really put some color behind this entire thing, because this is a topic with some depth to it, okay? Because last night is one of the most notable nights in modern UFC history. If you understand what actually happened last night, I mean, you're going to very shortly if you don't. But Francis just became the first first UFC champion in the modern age, especially one that's got some profile, to become an unrestricted free agent in the middle of their prime. Okay? Now, that's never happened before. Never. Not that I know of anyway. And certainly not when that particular fighter has an enormous star barking for a fight external of the UFC, like Tyson Fury is in the wings with Francis Ngannou. Now, when I lay out exactly how this really played out and how Francis and them won, it's mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing. And I'm also going to lay out why Dana is so pissed and why I understand why he's pissed. I mean, and it's not like there are no good guys and bad guys in this story. I'll tell you that right now. This is a story about a bunch of people who are working off the incentive structures that exist in their business and people taking tremendous risks. And for once, the team that took the risks, it paid off. And I don't think that it's unnotable that the team that did it is the same team built around a guy whose story starts in Cameroon in a sand mine and involves paddling across the ocean with his fucking hands. Like, this is part of the movie that is Francis. And last night was a big, massive fucking chapter in that book. So, yeah. Let me start off by saying this. Dana White is the most inspirational entrepreneur that YouTube is a thing that I do for fun, in case anybody's unclear on that. Okay. I have a lot of other business. I just love doing this. I love it. I love the UFC. I love Dana. I love all the fighters. I love the business. I love Markel. I love Francis. I love Eric. I love all the guys on that side. Like, I have nothing but respect and love for every single person in this story. But they happen to be adversaries in this story. Because business is war. That's what it is. If you don't view it that way, and I'm not talking about if you go work for a company and your job is to put together deals between blah, blah. I'm talking on like entrepreneurship, like where you're playing human chess all the time, like these guys are. Okay? It's the chess game. Now, I love the chess game more than anything in the world. More than anything, I love it. I fucking love it. And in the chess game, it's war. You are trying to win. You break people that stand in your way. You make strategic partnerships that are going to help you, that'll help them. But aside from strategic partnership, there's always going to be a war component. A threat, you crush it. You paint people into a box where they have no options. And then sometimes people fight their way out of that box, which is exactly what happened here. But when it comes to Dana being upset about how this turned out, I want to take a second before we even get into this, because Dana's very pissed. And I want to paint a different picture of Dana in general in this story, though. Okay? Now, I know that when there's an organization that's a huge success, a $10 billion company, and you've got a big roster of people that are saying that they're underpaid, right? It's very easy, almost automatic, for people who are not involved in that business to default to evil corporation screwing over the little guy. They're the bad guys, right? Now, you're always going to have advocates for the UFC, and most of the time, they're going to be people who collect a paycheck from the UFC in one form, direct or indirect. And then it's basically like everyone else is just like, man, they're really doing these guys wrong. And maybe they are, maybe they're not. But the context that never seems to come up as it relates to that story is, well, what about the 10 years that the UFC was pissing money away to pay the fighters what they were paying them? You know? So that's the thing. Company's a $10 billion company. Everybody forgets about the story about what it was before it was a $10 billion company, except for the people that were there. So, like I said, experience in business. This is the kind of thing that I can tell you with absolute certainty. So while externally everyone is going, geez, look at how much fucking money these guys are making and they're not paying it out. It's bullshit. Okay. Well, people on the inside of that company are going, are you fucking serious? Hey, what about from 2001 to like 2010, 10 fucking years, where every event that we did, we were coming out upside down $1 million. We were losing $1 million. We were losing, not, is the revenue split fair? We were losing money. Every night, like if you're Dana, so every night I went to sleep thinking that this is going to fall apart. Like maybe I can just hold on for just another quarter and maybe we can make something work. And then it just keeps on not working. I've never wanted anything more than this. There's nothing I've ever wanted more than for this to work. And I want it to work bad enough that I will fucking peel my eyeballs, back and work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And it's still not working. But I will ride this ship into the fucking ground if I have to. There's no rock I won't turn over. There's nothing I won't do to try to make this work. And if we throw in the towel, it won't be because I fucking quit. And imagine that you lived that life for a decade before things actually turned around a little bit. And then all of a sudden it was like, holy shit, are we making money? Are we making money? So all that time where you're stressing the fuck out, right? You got the fighters yelling at you about they're not getting paid enough. And you know that you're losing $1 million on every event and fucking maybe more. You're paying them out. You're paying them out of like your pocket. Right? And then as soon as you start making a little bit of money, just a little bit, they're still hammering you about fighter pay. And you're like, you know what? Fuck you guys. Okay. Now we're finally breaking even. Thank God. And then as it starts to grow and you get to a place where you're like, okay, now we're making some real money. Now we're making some real money. Now we're making some real money. I'm not saying that it makes it okay to never increase fighter pay or whatever. But I'm saying that to blindly act as if the organization is not entitled to a lion's share of profits, given the amount of money that they had to lose to put the company in a position to make the money that they're making now, that's unreasonable. And it demonstrates a lack of understanding of how these things actually come to be in existence. So I give you that context because if Dana's always the boogeyman in this fighter pace thing, then you're not going to be able to have an objective conversation with me. Because what I see Dana doing is I see Dana acting as a chief executive of an organization that he owes a number to every quarter. And then every year he rolls a number up to a publicly traded company where those numbers fucking matter. He makes he makes $40 million a year, $40 million a year. You think that he doesn't need that money. So what that money actually represents is it represents an enormous commitment that he owes to the shareholders to do the best possible job that he can. And what that actually means is to maximize profits. He's doing his job. He's earning his money. That is his job. Now, it's unfortunate that his job goes in direct conflict with the fighters, who anyone who's a fan of the sport should be rooting for to have an incredible life, having the most wealthy, incredible life. I mean, they're in direct conflict. Now, are there companies where their company culture revolves much more around different priorities than profits and revenue, et cetera? Like, I would certainly say that the companies that do that have the luxury of doing that. Amazon is the most customer-focused company in the world. I'm reading a book about that right now. And, they have the luxury of doing that. So I'm not saying that like anybody's right or wrong. But Dana is not acting like some fucking evil dictator. He's doing what an executive's supposed to do. Now, on the flip side, okay? On the flip side, if you're a fighter in the UFC and you're in the modern age and your goal is to make money for your family, to last you for as long as possible, to put you in a position where you don't have to work again, whatever your why is, why you want to maximize your earnings while you're fighting, which is everyone wants to maximize. You don't care about what it took to get to here. You're looking at the numbers now and you're like, this is unreasonable. You're paying 20% out to the fighters, where in the NBA and NFL, they pay out 49, 50%. Can you show me like a cost structure that would make that fair? Is a UFC overhead so much more than the NBA or NFL, or have you guys completely cornered the market and you're leaning on the fact that you have no competition and you're never negotiating against anyone to keep us paid an extraordinarily low amount? Because every fighter is in it for themselves. If you don't realize that now, that is the main problem at the same time. The main problem is that every fighter is in it for themselves. But that just is what it is. You're in it for yourself. You're in it for your team. You need to figure out a way to negotiate and get yourself as much money as possible, because there's nobody who's going to fucking give it to you. They're not like, no one's going to just give it to you. I mean, you still have to ask for it. Like even the company guys like O'Malley, who just straight up is like, look, I'm with the UFC. Dana's my fucking boss. I will do what the company asked me to do. I'll fight when they ask me to fight. I'll fight whoever they want me to fight. But I want to get fucking paid. I have seen that work out for people like O'Malley, who's about to get paid, like Connor. Like that is a method that can work with the UFC. But largely, if you want money from someone or from an organization, you have to ask for it. And you have to give them a reason to give it to you. And the UFC has been exceptional at taking away fighters' abilities to demonstrate that they can get that money somewhere else if the UFC doesn't give it to them. So what's the UFC actually negotiating against? They're negotiating against nothing. You have no way to get it because you're locked into your contract. And even if you got out of your contract, we offered you $400,000 a fight, 200 to show, 200 to win. Where are you going to get that? Where are you going to get that? Nowhere, right? Now, it's because they've taken all of the other players off the market. But here's the thing. Dana made an excellent point. The reason they take these people off the market is because they're not profitable. They're not making money. That's why they're selling to the UFC, which means maybe they can't afford to pay you I was making so much more at Strikeforce. And it's like, well, then why'd they go out of business? Maybe they actually can't afford to pay that much money. I don't know. I don't know the fucking story. But what I do know is that it's every fighter's responsibility to take what's theirs. Take it. You work inside of you work inside the confines that you're given, right? Like if you're locked into a contract, you do what you got to do. And in Francis's case, Okay. In Francis's case, he was in an 8-fight, 5-year deal. 8 fights, 5 years locked in. Okay. And he fought it out. He decided that he was going to just fight his contract out. Now, I know that they were negotiating throughout and there were deals on the table that got pulled back. And then there's there's all kinds of stuff going on here. But ultimately, when it came down to it, when it really came down to it, Francis' team chose not to sign a new deal before the Stipe fight. So they got 2 fights left. They chose to take less money to challenge Stipe. They bet on themselves, just like they had before, knowing that if he lost to Stipe, whatever fucking deal's on the table is going to be a lot less. A lot less. And so the UFC let them take that gamble, and they still gave him the fight. And, I think the UFC probably didn't think he would beat Stipe. And then he did. And then now he's the champion, and he's got 1 fight left. Right? And I would imagine the UFC was thinking back going, why the fuck did we give him that Stipe fight? Like without, because they didn't have to give him the fight. They didn't have to give it to him. Now his contract would have expired, at the end of, in December of this year anyway. But I would imagine they probably could have pushed whatever. I mean, like obviously this worked out the way it worked out. So I'm sure now they've got a lot of things that they might have done different. Or maybe they don't. I don't know. But what I know is that Francis and his team bet on themselves because now they are in this position to fight Tyson Fury, which is exactly what they're going to do, I would think. And Francis is going to go from making a potential few $1 million a fight to potentially making $60 million fighting Tyson Fury. And look, I'm going to be straight. His odds of winning in a boxing match against Tyson Fury are not high. But guess what else? This is a guy who has been doing the impossible his entire fucking life. I mean, it seems unfathomable to me that he would win in a boxing match against Tyson Fury. But again, I know his fucking story. And every time that the smart money would be to bet against him, he comes through. Now, do you guys realize what actually happened here last night? Listen to this fucking story, okay? So now the cat's out of the bag about his knee, right? I knew about this a month ago. Okay, I knew his MCL was fucking torn a month ago. This was a big deal, obviously. He had a torn MCL. Okay, not a strain, a torn MCL. Francis is going to fight no matter what. And the circumstances of his contract were this. He has 1 fight left, but no matter what happens, the contract can't extend past December of 2022. So 11 months from now. Okay? So if he pulls out of the fight right now and goes and gets knee surgery, right? Then what does that mean for where he's at? He's got Tyson Fury in the wings. Barking about a fucking boxing match with MMA gloves. He's got a torn MCL, which is a get out of jail free card. He could just go get surgery and then become a free agent at the end of the year. Okay? He did not need to take this fight. Do you guys understand that? The torn MCL was a gift from God if all he wanted was to be a free agent to go fight Tyson Fury. He could have pulled out, got surgery, and just sat it out. And he fought anyway. He fought against Cyril Gane while being what appeared to be totally immobile. If you watch him in the Stipe fight, watch how he moves. And then watch him in the Cyril fight. Watch how he moves. His leg was extremely compromised. I mean, I heard things before the fight that you wouldn't believe me if I told you. Like in terms of what are you thinking about the knee? Like, how much punishment could he take on the knee? Insanity. And Francis took the fight anyway. And there was damn near nothing to gain. There was almost nothing to gain. And you want to know why Francis wanted to do it? Is because he wanted to fulfill his contract. He wanted to fight the 8th fight on his deal. There's a clause in there, can't go past December. But Francis wants there to be no doubt. I fought my 8 fights and it can't go past. He fulfilled both sides of the contract he signed. He's fought all 8 fights and it lasted the maximum length that it can last. So in the event that the UFC hypothetically wanted to take him to court and say that he's not a free agent, they can't. So he fought on a torn MCL to remove all doubt about whether he's a real free agent or not. The same person that paddled across the ocean with his hands, same person that scaled, razor wire, same person that got, taken back to the forest 11 times. And with a management team that took so much shit in the media that it was unbelievable. I'm going to ask you guys a question now, okay? So, first let me say this. You guys understand that Dana is a brilliant strategist. A fucking brilliant strategist. I think that sometimes people look at people like him, and I'll put myself in this category also, I'm talking about temperament, and they think that people like us who are kind of snappy, that means that we're not thinking strategically. That is a drastic miscalculation in my case and definitely in Dana's case. Dana is a master strategist. That's one of the main reasons why the UFC got to where it is. He's a brilliant human strategist. And so when he's saying Francis has a manager that's giving him terrible advice, that's strategy. Okay? That's strategy. Because we've already talked about that. But I still have people texting me about how, Francis's manager is just blowing it. It's like, Francis is an unrestricted free agent now, you guys. Francis is an unrestricted free agent who's set to make $50+ million in his next fight. And I'm sorry, and one of the chief architects of this entire thing is Markel. Black and white, plain and simple. Now, these are all decisions Francis had to make. Make no mistake about it. Like, Francis is ultimately the captain of his own ship. But the implication that the lay of the land was not being navigated by his manager and saying, here are what our choices are, and here's the upside, here's what can be done, here's this and this and this, and laying it out, and then ultimately having a major influence on the direction that this went. Of course, Markel is right there. And now you have a UFC fighter set to make the most money any MMA fighter has ever made independent of the UFC by a fucking mile. And so the days of people saying he has a shit manager, that shit's fucking over, dude. And here's another thing. Where do you think Tyson Fury came from? Tyson Fury barking in the wings about a fucking boxing match. Where do you think that came from? You think Tyson Fury just got a hair up his ass? Or you think maybe fucking Francis' manager probably put that together? So there are just things that are just true and there are things that are not. And the idea that Markel did a bad job here is just objectively idiotic and false. Objectively wrong. Now, if Francis would have lost, it would have been Francis's decision, of course, still to not sign the contracts and but you can tell a different story if there's a different outcome, but there wasn't. There wasn't. This was the outcome. And in order to have great victories, you have to take tremendous risks. Something Dana can tell you. I look at Markel. I'm really fucking good at reading people, man. And I know Markel real well now. And I see like all the traits that I respect so much in Dana, I see in him. Like that, I think that in inverse situations, both of them would have done the exact same thing on the other side. I've said that to Markel before about just in kind of high level conversations about how the UFC structures deals with their fighters. And I was like, if you and me are running the UFC, you know that we're doing the exact same thing. And he's like, for sure. Of course. But you play the role that you're in. You play the fucking role that you're in. And Francis played the role of a person with a fucking torn ACL, MCL. And he fucking fought Cyril Gane anyway and won. Now, if this fight wouldn't have gone his way, do you understand what the outcome would have been for Francis, Markel, primarily those two guys? You understand, because they would have fucked Francis. Correctly. It's exactly what I would have done. It's exactly what I would have done. If someone went public and said they're not going to re-sign, they made this whole show about it, you make an example of them. It's war. It's fucking war. If they try to make a play that you don't want other people to make and they come up short, you fucking bury them for it. You bury them for it. You set an example. And that's exactly what would have happened without any shred of doubt. It's exactly what I would have done. Buried him. But it went the other way. And I was watching Markel and I was watching Francis warm up, but I was watching Markel on the side of the cage. And, this was really important for him. And when Francis won, man, that was good for him, dude. Great for Francis, great for Markel. Vindication, because he's taken so much shit. I can't even imagine. I'm very good at this kind of thing normally, but I can't even fucking imagine what it would feel like to have Dana talk about me like that. Because of who Dana is. Like, Dana's such a fucking badass. That would kill me, dude. It wouldn't kill me, but it would hurt bad, dude. Even if Dana was my adversary in a negotiation, it's impossible not to respect him. I mean, I like him and respect him, but I mean, like, even if there was, just shit fucking hurt, man. And then have everybody piling on Twitter, piling on all everywhere. It's like, and he fucking wore it, and he won last night. Francis won the fight. Francis won the war. Markel won his own war too. In a big way. Enormous vindication, dude. Fucking enormous vindication. And I think that's why Dana didn't want to put that belt on, is because who really lost in there last night was the UFC. The UFC lost because Francis won. And, look, like the final outcome of this thing may end up being that the UFC re-signs Francis. They end up paying him much more than what they would have. He gets like a $10 million a fight deal, or, 10 bait. I don't know, whatever, some huge fucking deal. And then they just move forward. It's possible that's exactly what happened. And then they do a boxing carve out with Tyson Fury. Maybe what ends up happening here is the UFC just pays Francis much more money than they would have had to if he wouldn't have become an unrestricted free agent. And they do a carve out for boxing. They said they'd never do it again, but we have no choice. We can't lose our fucking heavyweight champion, and that's what happens. But right now, as a result of last night, that only happens if Francis agrees. Francis has to fucking agree now. And that is a very unique situation that these guys earned. I love this shit. I love it, man. I fucking love it more than anything. I love it. But, yeah, I love it enough, honestly, that if any of you guys, If any of you guys ever have that kind of thing going on, fighters trying to negotiate, anyway, fighters trying to negotiate, regular folks trying to negotiate things, hit me up. I like doing this. I really enjoy it, actually. The game of it is my favorite thing in the world. But yeah, last night was incredible, man. I got to hug Bisbing at the show. Got to hug Markel, Eric, Nick Sick. Got to see everybody. Cyborg was in our section. Dominic Reyes was in our section. Nate Diaz. Saw a fucking million people last night. Pereira was at our hotel. It was an amazing night. But anyway, I love this fucking sport, man. I just love it. Anyway, that's what I got.